OpenAI says its unreleased next model just made 10 mathematical breakthroughs, and the successful runs only cost about $2,000. How come it is the same kind of AI that can still trip over the number of R's in strawberry? Both can be true, and the reason tells us far more about the future of science than another benchmark ever could. So I'm going to show you the launch post from Noam Brown, who works over OpenAI, saying that an internal version of Astra, OpenAI's next major model family, read ChatGPT 6, solved 10 major open problems across mathematics and theoretical computer science. Fair warning, I am not a mathematician. I cannot personally certify research level proofs. What I can do, and that's what we're going to do in this video, is separate the evidence from the marketing, show you how the verification works, and explain why this is getting serious attention. So let's jump over and see what they've actually released. First of all, they have not released Astra. They have not released GPT-6. We cannot use it in the public. We do not have a model card. We do not have any reproducible public benchmarks. All we have is some evidence that some mathematical proofs have been created. They have released the work, a 249-page collection of mathematical papers, a separate 62-page set of discovery notes written by the AI, and a public repository containing lean certificates for all 10 results. And all of this is available online. So Noam talks about we have solved 10 major open problems. The actual article itself is a little bit more conservative. 10 advances in mathematics, and we'll talk about the difference here. But you can then read ChatGPT's own account of how this work happened in this 62-page guide, which I'll put in my newsletter. And they have also published the proofs, so you can run these through Lean yourself and check the actual work, whether or not these mathematical breakthroughs are real or not. And we're already hearing that at least one, number 4, is complete and utter BS. But the main thing here is they are releasing their work. They're not giving us some model, but they are giving us what we can use to replicate those results and see if there's anything here at all. That is much stronger evidence than just another leaderboard screenshot, which is generally what we get at this stage in the model lifestyle. But remember that this is still a claim from the company that built the model, so the outside review is what matters now. We do need to be careful in the language here. So Noam talks about solving 10 major open problems in mathematics. That is probably overblowing it a little bit. So as I mentioned, they're a bit more conservative here. 10 advances in mathematics and theoretical computer science. Those things are not quite the same. Solutions and advances are two different things. We have a social media version, which is on Twitter, and then when we have the actual reality of it. So we do need to separate that out. And to be fair, OpenAI in their official documentation are calling it advances. In terms of what we have 4 better bounds. So this is not necessarily giving us the answer to a problem, but helping us hone in the upper and lower bound where the answer lives, which is still an advancement. We have 2 counterexample results, which show that there's not necessarily a universal proof for the mathematical conjecture that is being discussed. And then we have 3 theorems and 1 new construction. 1 disproves Con's rigidity. That's one that has been questioned, number 4. Others prove broader theorems. 3 of them are numbered Erdos problems and are resolved across the final 2 results. So it's a wide range of different problems that have been tackled in this 10 set. Must point out though, these are not 10 identical eureka moments. They're different kinds of progress. People close to the field are highlighting the non-Sophic group construction and the sphere packing results in particular, but not all of these are going to be of the same importance. What is more impressive is that OpenAI are able to release across the board in 10 different areas, 10 different advancements. Very, very cool stuff. There is a number that you're going to see thrown around a lot, especially on social media, of the results costing $2,000. And in fact, if we go to their official, let's see if we can find it, put in the $sign, there we go. We provide new results for the following problems, and then there's a list of them: sphere packing, binary spherical codes, etc. The results were achieved by an internal version of Astra, GPT-6. Our next major model. The total number of tokens needed to find solution in these problems would cost roughly $2,000 at Sol API rates. So Sol is GPT 5.6. One of the variants of that. These arguments were then prepared into manuscripts by humans with the same model. Afterwards, the model formalized each argument into a lean certificate, which could be tested. We're also releasing each solutions a model narration of its thinking process. So this $2,000 and this sentence here is doing a lot of heavy lifting. The total number of tokens needed to find solutions to these problems would cost roughly $2,000 at sole API prices. We do need to be careful here. This does not include training Astra. That is hundreds of millions. It does not include the researchers, the internal tools, the choosing what problems they're going to be solving. It does not necessarily include all of the failed runs as well, the ones that they failed to solve. Choosing what to publish, manuscript preparation or verification. There are additional layers here which have not been included. That said, $2,000 is still not very much money considering the quality of the work that's been put out. But we need to be careful with hyperbole. We can't say that OpenAI built this whole research program for $2,000. That is not correct, and you will see that being said on social media. Again, we just need to calm down a little bit. The reality, the truth is already impressive enough without us having to build upon that. It's still very extraordinary, because once you have this model, once you have the workflow, the marginal inference cost of generating 10 serious candidate results is tiny compared to a research grant. And once you've got all of this built up, once you've built these systems and these workflows, you can now run another 10 problems, another 100, another 1,000. And the marginal cost of running those additional problems is very, very low compared to the more traditional methods. Now, something that everybody, and I know people are going to be yelling at me in the comments about this on YouTube, and I do need to point out to people who are new to my YouTube, I am pro AI. I know that I talked about the book destruction the other day, and I have thousands of people who have watched that, and hundreds of people have commented and seemed a bit confused when I'm still pro artificial intelligence. I am pro AI, but I want to look at these things with nuance. So we need to do this. It's important. Speaking of, how come ChatGPT can do this type of complicated mathematics? It's very advanced mathematics that is doing stuff that humans have not worked out, yet it cannot count the number R's in strawberries. This is a very reasonable question that people are going to ask. If it can work at this kind of level, why can it not do basic arithmetic? The short answer here is something called representation. So a large language model usually receives subword tokens, not a clean list of individual characters. I'll show you what that looks like. If I can pull it up, there we go. Strawberry, when it is tokenized, when it is broken down and stored, embedded inside of a large language model, is broken up into individual tokens. And in the case of Strawberry, for whatever reason, a lot of the time, depending on the model and depending on the tokenizer, it will be broken down into multiple tokens. So here, for example, in GPT-4, the tokenizer splits Strawberry into 3 distinct parts: str, aw, and berry. So the individual letters are not seen in the same way that we see words. And each character, and so when we do exact character counting, therefore, it begins with a representation problem. The model has to reconstruct the letters before it counts them. This is a particular foible. This is something that large language models are not very good at, and that is why this continues to be a problem whilst they're able to do complicated mathematics. These are 2 different types of problems. It does not see a clean sequence of letters like we as humans do. It sees token chunks. And exact character counting can require the model to reconstruct letters that were compressed inside of those chunks, and research shows that tokenization materially changes counting performance, and this is something that still has not been solved. That said, a large complicated math problems can fit the system, the large language model system, differently. It can be written symbolically, explored through long chains of reasoning, attacked by many different candidate methods, and checked by a precise verifier. We can give tools to our large language models that can do this kind of work in a way that we can't with the Strawberry problem. So there are different types of problems, and the AI is not as good at them as we might be, but it's much better at other things than humans are. So the meme itself does not prove that large language models cannot reason. It just shows that their abilities are uneven. The takeaway really here is that model ability is not a smooth scale from easy to hard, because it depends on representation, tools, search, and verification. There's a word for this. This is called the jagged frontier. So people like Ethan Mollick call this a jagged technological frontier. We, as humans, instinctively rank tasks by how difficult they feel to us, to humans. That is a very anthropocentric, way to look at these problems, because we are used to being the most intelligent thing on earth. We are used to getting to judge what is easy, what is hard. AI does not use that same map. So two tasks that could look equally difficult to us as humans can sit on completely opposite sides of the model's capability frontier. Inside that frontier, AI can improve performance, but outside of it, plausible wrong answers can make us worse. And that is why one person might say AI is entirely useless, and another person might say it has entirely transformed my work. And they are both going to be right. They're just coming from different parts of the frontier. One where AI is incredibly advanced, and another where AI is still slacking. It is not consistent. There is a jagged frontier of advancement across different parts of human society. So let's come back to the proofs quickly. What has been announced is not a verification path, but the work has been released and is now given to professional mathematicians to verify what OpenAI have actually discovered. What they've created, for those of you who are unaware, are something called lean certificates. So you can come and find these lean certificates, and this is what it looks like. It is basically a very long series of steps. And the lean certificate allows anybody, any mathematician who's running this program, to run this package and to follow through to make sure all of the logic, all of the reason makes sense. That does not mean that the proof is correct. It also does not mean that it is important. It does not mean it is novel. But this allows us to run through, using a computer tool, these 55,000 lines of code in order to see whether logically everything follows through. So that's what they've released, so people can now check them. And people are already running through them and saying, no, this is a load of nonsense, especially on number 4 in particular. So you can run these yourself if you know what you're doing, if you are a mathematician, and this is what the mathematical community is doing right now, so that outside researchers can inspect and rerun them. This is really important because this is how we do science. We publish a result, a candidate result, we put it out, and then it gets peer reviewed, and then it gets checked by the scientific and the mathematical community, and it will be disproven, or people will find ways to tweak it, or they will say, hey, no, this is correct, and then we will build upon it. That is how science and mathematics has worked for at least a couple of hundred years. So this is very powerful stuff, but it is not magic. A machine can prove the wrong formal statement perfectly inside of lean. So experts still need to check all of the encoded theorem and check that it matches the claims, that the assumptions are legitimate, the results are new, and that they actually matter. The certificates are just a way for us to allow the community to get their hands on and make sure that the first part of this is done, and that is now in play. So we have things like, let me pull it up here. This is Jenny Lorraine Nielsen. This is on Twitter, basically saying, we don't know it's right until the community checks. Also, number 4 is total bullshit. And she has put out a paper already on Phil papers, basically saying cons rigidity theorem, disproof of OpenAI's counterexample, and proof of the conjecture. So this is how science works. This is how mathematics works. People will check each other's work, push back on each other, and that's how, as a whole, as a species, we learn. So very, very exciting, and I applaud ChatGPT for actually releasing all of their results rather than just saying, hey, we proved some stuff, and using that for marketing. And this is not the first time. So this is a big, new, chunky release of new mathematical solves, new mathematical advancements in mathematics, quantum complexity, and theoretical computer science. And this is currently doing numbers. This has got 12 million views almost on Twitter, but this is not new. So this has been happening for the last 6 months or more. So we had and have had various different breakthroughs, various different models that have been used by mathematicians and students to break through ERDOS problems in particular, going through unsolved problems, throwing the artificial intelligence at them, working alongside the AI and finding new proofs, finding new candidates. So we had a Dartmouth master student. This was Benjamin Grazel. He used Gemini 3 Pro to resolve a ERDOS problem. I think it was problem 659. Another case, we had Neil Samani. He had an ERDOS problem, put it into GPT 5.2, got a proof in about 15 minutes, and then formally checked it. And then we've had one of the most exciting ones back in May. An OpenAI model disproved a long-standing unit distance conjecture. External mathematicians have checked it, and Tim Gowan, Fields medalist, called it a milestone. I will put all of this into the newsletter so you can read through them. But Fields medalist Tim Gowan, writing in the companion paper, calls the result a milestone in AI mathematics. According to leading number theorist Arul Shankar, in my opinion, this paper demonstrates that current AI models go beyond just helpers to human mathematicians. They're capable of having original, ingenious ideas and carrying them out to fruition. Big talk, extremely big talk. So what is happening, and this cannot be, it's very hard to push back on, is that cheap, persistent candidate generation is increasing. We can put out a lot more output. Whether or not that output is high quality, whether or not it's going to pass verification, whether or not it is novel, whether or not it's important, those are the next steps. But we are able to put out a lot more candidates, a lot more papers, a lot more potential theorem solves than previously using artificial intelligence. Is it slop? Or is it something real? That is what we're finding out right now. We're in the midst of it. So AI slop for mathematics, or is this science? Is this the future of science? This comes to the question of, well, is AI truly creative? We just saw some very smart people saying that, yeah, we are coming out with new things. Is this just recombination? Is it just predicting the next token? I mean, next token prediction does describe the training objective. It is the mechanism by which these tools do work, but we just don't know how far that mechanism is necessarily going to take us. It is how we generate, but it does not settle what behaviors can emerge when the model is embedded in search. We give it tool use, we give it verification loops, we give it graph, etc. We do not know the behavioral ceiling of a model that can reason for hours and work using all of these tools, all of the things that we give it, search literature, write code, and test candidate proofs. We do not know what the limit of that is, especially as we continue to scale our models. What emerges, what emergent properties will come from these models, we don't know. And that's what we're in the midst of right now. And you must remember that human creativity as well is also about recombining methods, examples, and ideas. It's building literally on the shoulder of giants. Things that already exist, we build upon them and we create new things. Very little is truly unique. Very little new exists under the sun. And what we need to do now is work out whether what AI is creating is new, valuable, and surprising. That's a practical test. If it's new, valuable, and surprising, this is close to what the patent office does, but basically a way to distance ourselves from who is doing the creation. Not worry about that so much, but think about the functional output, whether it's new, valuable, and surprising. That's what we need to focus on, and we are getting to that point. And if any of these constructions are genuinely new, open up a field, then calling the output creative, I'll put it in scare quotes, is defensible, in my opinion. That does not, however, because this is the next thing that people worry about, that does not mean the model is conscious. It does not mean the model has intentions or understands mathematics like a person or understands science like a person. That is unrelated and unimportant. We just need to look at the output, the functional output of what it creates. So do not confuse novel work with a claim about inner experience. They are unrelated, and that is an unhelpful way to take this discussion. What we can say is this: if machines can generate serious candidate results cheaply, at speed, massive volume as well, then the bottleneck has moved. The scarce work is no longer creating candidates. Instead, the scarce work becomes choosing the right questions. What do we want to set these models on? What kind of problems should they be solving in mathematics and science? Then we are moving the bottleneck to checking the results. At the moment, we still need humans there. explaining it clearly and turning isolated counterexamples into theory that other researchers can use. So what's happening in mathematics, in science, and indeed in many, many different industries is that the grunt work is being taken by artificial intelligence, so it requires more discernment, more judgment, working out how we use this new powerful tool to accelerate our business, to accelerate mathematics, to accelerate science, to accelerate learning. That's up to the human still. So the bottleneck has shifted, and we need to up ourselves and our ability and our skills so that we can manage these systems, because doing the grunt work is no longer valuable. The artificial intelligence can do that at scale, faster, cheaper, and better than we can. So Terence Tao, for example, and I'm going to put this in the newsletter because it's a wonderful resource here. Terence Tao says that current AI tools now save him more time than they waste. And that's new. He used them for literature search, code, calculation, testing approaches, but he still describes them as useful assistants, not peers, and stresses formal verification. That is where we are right now. I will put this in the newsletter because says somebody has put together all of Terence Tao's various thoughts about AI and mathematics, and it is a generally really useful piece for thinking about the role of artificial intelligence in all areas of human life. And obviously he is an incredibly smart man. So this is well worth reading. It will be in the newsletter, aiwithkyle.com, and I'll also put it down below this YouTube video once we publish. And I think this is going to be the near future for scientists. It's going to be becoming a director of research, a referee of the enormous machine exploration, rather than being at this level, wondering and creating candidate answers. That is going to shift the industry. That is going to shift how academia works. That is going to shift the value of PhDs, for example, instead moving a lot of the bottleneck further up into the more executive functions. So, my verdict on all of this. I think this is a serious signal wrapped in an announcement that we still need to interrogate, as always with an awful lot of artificial intelligence. The serious part here is the scale of the work. The public papers that they've released, the machine checkable certificates, and then earlier externally reviewed results and reactions from people who actually understand the fields. If you see people like me talking about this stuff, don't trust me. I'm not a mathematician. Go and see what the mathematicians are saying. I'm just trying to cut through the hype and help you work out what is going on. Do not listen to me or people like me about whether or not this is important, whether or not this is new, and whether or not this is actually the future of mathematics. Go and listen to the mathematics. Go and listen to Terence Tao. The hype check here, though, is that Astra is still unreleased. GPT-6 is not with us. And OpenAI have selected, of course they have, successful results. Yes, $2,000 was spent to find each of these results, but how many other results did they chase that did not work? 100? 1,000? 10,000, 100,000, we don't know. We do not know. Is this just throwing a lot of darts and they happen to find 10 that worked really well and they're like, ship it, tell people. And independent experts have not finished inspecting every claim. This literally came out a few days ago. Let me find, this was on the 1st of August, so 2 days ago. This is still very much in the air, so keep your eyes peeled to see what happens from these. Still, after all these caveats, after all the hype, the direction is hard to dismiss. This is a big deal, not just in science and mathematics, but more broadly. Science may soon be able to produce candidate discoveries faster than humans, and institutions can verify, explain, and absorb them. And what happens then? What does that mean for humanity and the progress moving forward? I think the question here is no longer can AI answer difficult questions. It is becoming, can we choose the right questions, verify the answers, and understand what they mean, which is a very different relationship with artificial intelligence from what we have right now. I, for one, am excited, but I can see why this would also cause consternation. Hopefully this has been useful. Make sure you are subscribed to my newsletter, aiwithkyle.com, totally free, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've just hit 75,000 subscribers, which is fantastic, and hopefully I can continue to bring you AI news, helping you learn how to navigate this new world without the hype, without the fear, and without losing your mind. Thanks so much. My name is Kyle, and I'll see you soon.